Hey everybody, Nick here, and today we're going to do another disassembly video. This time we're looking at the cold steel broken skull. Oh, the broken skull. So, go on ahead and watch my full review for my full opinion on the matter. But this is an interesting knife. And it's got some serious good, some serious bad, and some really serious ugly here. So I'm going to go ahead and first pop out the pivot screw here. And the bit I'm using for that is a Torx T10. And it really does look like the only things we got going on here are the pivot screw and then the 4 screws in the back here. One interesting thing to note about this is that if you look, the pivot screw is right here on this side, but it's over here on the other side. I'm sorry, not pivot, the scale screw. So the screws are not symmetrical. Usually it's the case that the screws kind of come together. But in this case, the screws are kind of coming in at these different locations. And that just means that each screw is independently secure in the back spacer there. Probably improves the strength of the backlock a little tiny bit. Not a big deal. But yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. And it is something that means we're probably going to have to, pardon me, disassemble all... or unscrew all of these screws in order to get the backlock done. And many, many thanks, of course, to my buddy Roger, who loaned this guy to me, and for being really cool about everything. As I was carrying this, the clip got scraped up, and he gets the whole painted DLC thing. And you know, I offered to spray paint it or something for him, but he said, no, that's just how it is. That's a gem of a human being there. Even offered to replace the damn thing, but he's happy, so I'm happy. Feel bad about it, though, still. Alright, so we've now pulled the handle screws here. I'm going to put those guys aside. And put the pivot screw on over here, which means the blade is about ready to pop loose. And there went, well, that. Oh, that's the plate that the clips mount into. Oh, interesting. All right. So now I'm going to try, and there we go. Hey, cool. So now we're getting a really nice cross-section of the cold steel triad lock here. So let me kind of de-oil a little bit so you get a better sense of what's going on. There went my water bottle. That's okay. This is how the triad lock works here. You've got the stop pin here, which is what makes it different from a conventional back lock. It pops open like that, and then rotates, and then it drops back in here. So there's your triad lock, and it's a nice little cut apart. But the thing is, if you look closely at this, this is a back lock. I'm not disputing that the triad lock is a different thing. It does have this stop pin in there, which does stabilize a little bit more on this axis, on the axis of the blade coming this way. But, you know, at its fundamental core, this is basically the same idea as a back lock with a minor variation. And as you can see here, the amount of tang, basically, well, not tang, the amount of lock bar that drops into the blade tang is very, very long, which explains, pardon me, the really long, the long pull here as you're pulling this up. So, something to keep in mind. Okay, gonna remove the blade here. Came with 2 washers, both actually metal. Nice. So I've just pulled the washers off. One other thing to notice here. Oh, interesting. There's Teflon washers under there, too. Where did the other Teflon washer go? Oh, here it is. Still attached. Interesting. This is not even paper thin. This is like, it's a membrane. And so the Teflon was against the blade. And that makes sense because the Teflon adheres to the paint here. And then the Teflon spins against the bronze. It's a little bit of a dirty hack. I'm sorry. Nice try, Cold Steel. But, you know, nonetheless. Okay, so the blade is out. The washers are separated out. That's good. Let's pop this spring on out of here. That'll allow me to lift the backlock portion up. And there we go. Pop the pivot out. Tight fit right there. Surprisingly so. And oh, the clip screw is screwed into this backspacer. And that's why the backspacer here is not wanting to pop out. But you know what? Honestly, I don't care. Because it's very apparent to me that this backspacer is... Well, is it maybe? Yeah, it is an aluminum of some variety or another. But either way, it's not going to rust. So I don't need to coat the backside of this backspacer with anything in order to feel good about myself. And there we go. So the knife is now fully disassembled, and that's nice. Let's go on ahead and clean off some of the parts here. Again, it's not a terribly dirty knife, but always merits a good cleaning. Just wiping off the backlock there, the triad, whatever the heck you want to call it. It's a freaking backlock, people. Be done with it. Not to downplay Demco's work there, but... Okay. Interesting. Oh. Let's wipe this down a little bit more. So it's generally a good idea when you're reassembling a knife, particularly one that you don't use all the time, that you haven't seen taken apart every damn day, to really kind of pay attention to how it was put together in the first place and follow that lead. So one thing that I did notice here is that this little pin right in here, in the middle there, was held in with a little tiny bit of grease. And, you know, it could have just been that that was during assembly that they found it easiest. I'm just wiping these down with a little bit of simple green to decrud them. But it could be that during assembly they found it easiest to do the assembly if there was a little bit of grease on there to keep that in there. It could actually be a functional part of the knife. But given that I really only have one shot, I'm going to do this reassembly and then I'm going to mail it on back to my buddy Roger. I'm going to go ahead and mirror that. So I'm going to use a little bit of nano grease here, just to ensure that even if I don't fully understand why that grease is there, I have put in the proper precautions, basically. So I'm going to very slowly try and pop this out. It's in a big old syringe applicator, which is great if you're using 2 gallons of it, but pretty crappy if you're using 2 ounces. Sooner or later, I'm going to get a big old turd of nano grease pop out of this. There we go. And actually, that's already enough for me to do what I need to do with it. Oh, where's my oiler? Here it is. So what I'm just going to use is I'm going to lop off a little bit of this grease with my oiler here and apply it that way. That way I get a little bit more precision and I don't completely drown the hole. So now, for whatever reason there was grease in there, there's grease in there still. Now on this guy, make sure you pull the syringe back so that way you don't end up with massive turds of nano grease inside your drawer where you keep your cleaning supplies. Not that I speak from experience or anything. Nope, not me. I'm a brilliant man, you know. Alrighty, so it's reassembly time. Let's go on ahead and do this. First step is probably going to be just to oil up the pivot and drop it on through there. Backlocks are kind of nice for a variety of reasons, and by extension triad locks. But one of the reasons is that when you're disassembling or reassembling them, there's not really a... They're nice and layered. On a frame lock, you've always got the tension of the frame lock preventing you from putting the scales together. Versus on a backlock, everything sits happily, so you can reassemble it kind of in place in a more meaningful way. I like that. I appreciate that a lot. And just because it makes my life a little bit easier as I'm doing all this. So I oiled the pivot a little bit. Now that's swinging nicely. Beautiful. I am going to drop in the stop pin. There we go. And these 2 pins look to be identical. Drop that in there as well. So that's nice. I'm going to drop in this little middle pin here. This is the greased pin. And indeed, it is again greased. And I believe this serves as a stop pin for the triad lock. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is the internal stop pin for the blade. That's kind of slick. See, look. That's what stops the blade from slamming into the other side of the back lock. Nice. So I don't understand why we would need the grease there, but you know what? Whatever. It works. I'm going to go ahead and lubricate the inside of the triad lock bar here. Not that it's super necessary, but every little bit helps, right? So there you go. That's now put in there. I have forgotten the key step here, and that is washers. Drop a washer in. I've already done a little bit of lube, so I'm going to do a little bit more here. Come on now. Holy crap, these Teflon washers are thin. Like, this doesn't even count as a washer, really. Oof. I'm going to go ahead and drop that on there. Beautiful. Go ahead and do that. And there's already more than enough oil on the inside of this. Whoa there. Okay. Now, again, Teflon down first. If I can pick it up, there we go. On top of that, I'm going to put a little tiny bit of oil. Now the washer. Spin it a little bit. A little bit more, why not? Okay, right now the only remaining thing to do is install the backlock spring here. And depending on how hard this is, yeah, actually what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to lift the blade up out of here, which gives me a little more play, and then allows me to wedge the spring bar back in there. Hopefully you saw that. Okay, everything still seems to be in order. Drop that back in there. And this feels like a functioning triad lock, so I know I'm good in that way. This little piece here needs to live right inside this gap here. Problem is it's not super well fit in there. So what I'm actually going to do, even though it doesn't need any kind of a lubrication, I'm going to use a little tiny dollop of the heavier weight nano oil effectively as an adhesive. Not that it'll keep it stuck in there for a long time, but it provides, if the tolerances were right, it would provide some surface tension there, which would keep it on there. But alas, that didn't work. So instead, I'm just going to hope and pray that it goes on properly. Now there's a question of seating all these various little pins in the G10 properly. So this guy needs to pop in, this guy needs to pop in. And actually that little piece did stay inside there, so that's a beautiful thing. Oh, he speaks too soon. It just flew out. So, back to where we started. If it does this to me one more time, I'm busting out some of the nano grease. That'll stick it in there. Ah, you little bugger. Okay. That's it. It's on. Okay, just a little bit of grease. There we go. Now you're going to be in there for damn good. Yeah, just try and go someplace. Little bugger. Wipe the grease off the top there. Not that it really matters. There we go. There are two ways to go about this. the easy way and the hard way. That particular screw chose the hard way. Now, one thing you can, well, I'll make sure you can see this. One thing you can see here is that on the screw itself, there's a little bit of a blue residue. And that is blue Loctite. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do here is, well, use blue Loctite. As it advocated already. This Loctite tube is getting toward the end of its useful life. Shake it up a little bit. Get it down towards the end. Now use my handy dandy oiler. There's a nice big dollop on the edge there. Go ahead and drop that in there. In here. Plenty of it around the pivot. Hit the other side. And there we go. I thought I just heard something drop loose. Hopefully I'm full of crap. All right. Hey, excellent. Now that I got that in there, just drop in these screws one by one. And again, you want to make sure that on your handle screws, you're not fully cranking everything down until everything's properly aligned. Generally, I try and get my pivot screw in and happy before I fully crank down the handle screws. Right now, mostly these are serving to keep things from falling apart completely. On some knives, and it really does depend on the tolerances. For instance, the Rick Hinderer knives, the Hinderer Custom, well, not custom, but mid-tech I had for a long time. Well, not that long of a time, but still. It really needed a lot of handle screw work in order to have good blade centering. You just couldn't trust that the handles, the blades would be centered if the handle screws weren't perfectly dialed in with the blade at a 90-degree angle. It was a train wreck. And so it shouldn't matter with most quality knives, but there it did. And that's one of many reasons I'm disappointed with Rick Hinderer knives. All right. I'm going to go ahead and lock the pivot down for the moment. It's a little tighter than I want it to be, but that's okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and tighten down the pivots, the handle screws the rest of the way here. Done. 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 And done. Centering is pretty good, but the pivot's just too tight. So, there we go. I'm giving this just a little tiny turn there. No blade play. It's a little smoother. And then finally, because this is effectively a backlock knife, backlock's always the biggest source of friction as you're opening and closing it, is the closing up my Loctite, is this, the motion of the back lock here against the back of the blade tang. And, you know, something like that requires a little bit of a heavier weight. Well, it doesn't require, but I prefer to use a heavier weight oil. Like, this is the 85 weight nano oil, but you can also use your frog lube or something else like that. But either way, now that grease will get spread, well, oil will get spread along the top there, and it's a little tiny bit smoother now for it. And this is a knife that, you know, unfortunately it doesn't really drop shut nicely because there's not a good place for your finger to go. There is this surface here, but the thing is, there's also this little portion of the blade that protrudes out, so I'm not going to run it super loose. Instead, I'm running it like this, which gives the back lock, it makes it a little bit more two-handed as a back lock, but that's okay. This isn't exactly a fall shut sort of back lock anyways. But yeah, the broken skull is now reassembled and fully happy and operational. Go ahead and wipe that off, and just so Roger's not asking any questions, although presumably he'll watch the video, go ahead and remove the majority of this nano grease in there that I used to stick that damn thing in there. And oh boy, did it stay stuck. I told it I would win, and alas, well, not alas, and hooray, I did. There we go. So, douchey knife, but actually pleasant disassembly. Well, douchey name on a decent knife, but pleasant disassembly. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.